o'clock, so we'll call this meeting to order. Everyone's here but Lonnie. He notified me that he wasn't gonna be able to make it. He's having to spend some time in Kansas City with work, so he's not exactly happy about not being here. But I understand. That's nice.
That very first.
Can
I have it?
Yeah, I guess we can do that. We're gonna have them. I was following.
That's okay. I had a trip.
So there's our attendance. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Leslie sent those out. I entertain a motion. Second. All in favor? Aye. Yeah. All right, so discussion. You're up, Rick.
Thanks, sir. I've read in the minutes, noticed in the minutes that I was supposed to bring you something that we could talk about tonight, and I failed to do that. I apologize for it. 14. Yeah, I swear, it's a tough crowd. How many of y'all have ever spent any time around Gregors to speak of? You've been around them. Do you know any that are not hard-headed?
I haven't met one yet.
No, okay. Well, I'm one of those.
I spent more time around Jack.
I even talked to one in Dyersburg this week, and we had a long conversation about hard-headed Gregors, because her husband had died a few years ago, and she was well acquainted with hard-headed Gregors. But I said that because I tried to run us off in a ditch last time. I guess talking about home occupations. None of them cause trouble. I'm here to solve problems if I can. I don't want to cause problems where I don't have to. It's just my nature, I guess. But I'll try to go through the highlights that I've made in my copy and let you see what I'm talking about as I get to them. I still need guidance on how to go about it. I can bring you a document, but where there are choices to be made, I need help in trying to figure out what to do, how to go about it. Like gas service stations, there's one place in there where buildings set back from all street right-of-way lines to a distance of not less than 40 feet in the county or 50 in the city. And we said last time, I think, to go with the more restricted, if I remember right. Yeah. So with that in mind, you would want to change the 40 in the county to be the 50 that's in the city. Okay. All right. And if that holds in most cases, I can do that. I don't have in the county an equivalent to the swimming pool restrictions in the city. So when that happens, when there's no corollary,
then you just adopt the city ones for the county.
That's my question. So I just move that into the document and leave that. Then the question becomes: do you want it to be an overall restriction, or do you want to leave it back with the old urban services area? And that's going to be a question that comes up a lot in some of this discussion is, how do you want to go about those changes? Because I mean, we're metro.
Yeah.
And it can be one requirement countywide. But are there places, and you all tell me, are there places where we want to leave it strictly with the city, or we just want to add it in here and make it general across the county?
Well, my thought on that would be for urban, a lot of the ordinances that we have in place for the urban is because of the density.
Okay.
That you might not necessarily have those same issues in the county because, once again, the lack of density. So if that's the case on that item, I just wanting to stay consistent with what is already in place.
Okay. If it rises to be an onerous restriction, bring that to your attention and discuss it.
That would be my, yeah, and that's something we can take to planning also.
Okay.
And let them have their 2 cents.
Well, this one is pretty easy. Let me read you what it is. in town in Hartsville, swimming pool restrictions, no pool or part thereof protrude into any required front yard in the ag or residential district. Swimming pool area shall be walled or fenced so as to prevent uncontrolled access by children. Fence or wall not less than 3 feet in height. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, that's not code. It's 4 feet.
4 feet. Well, let's just change that while I'm sitting here.
Yeah. And I can see that just being across the county though.
Okay.
Because that's not so much density as it is safety and appearance of the lot.
That's my question.
I would just like to say that since we're a metro, isn't the whole point that it's all the same?
Not necessarily, because you still have urban areas, which Hartsville would be. You still have rural areas. So that's the whole, as we were looking at these, there's still, it's like on your commercial, there's a C1 where you can live on the commercial lot, but you can't do that in the county. That's separated. And I'm not trying, in doing this process, everyone has told me that as far as the full commission, they like the idea of us going in and cleaning things up, but they're not wanting an overhaul. They're not wanting us to come up with complete new ordinances. There's that whole gross overreach of government in there. So I'm not trying to rewrite anything. I'm just wanting us to finally get this thing's kind of a nice standardized, format where it's easy to read and it's cleaned up in some of the language. I think that's what we've been doing thus far, and I'd like to really stay with that.
I'm asking guidance. That's the reason.
Oh, swimming pool.
Yeah.
I know where there's one now. A house been built recently. It's got no fence or anything, but it's out in the county. Subdivision out in the county.
At this point, it would be grandfathered because as of this point, there is nothing in the county.
Now,
Is that true?
If they had gotten a building permit, now is it above ground or below in ground?
there's in the ground.
Okay, is there a fence around the perimeter of the property?
You're talking about the one out on 25 going out of town?
Then.
River Valley out there. The house built up on a new rural road they built up through there, right next to my property. Where the bridge is going and all that.
So if they had.
Big old white house.
Yeah, they would
They
have
got a
been.
pool on the side area. And ain't nothing around it. I just wonder.
Yeah, that's.
Unless they've changed it since I've been down there. Last time I looked, it didn't have that.
Now, are there building codes as far as fencing around pools
Absolutely.
that have nothing to do with our zoning? That's
Correct.
separate standing. So
So
that's already in place. So yeah, and then so taking it throughout the county is just pulling that building code into our county code. So I think that's, yeah.
Okay, I mean.
Well, it's already there, whether we have it here or not.
Yeah, so it just makes it easier
Okay.
to reference it being in there with the zoning, since it is already stated for the city anyway.
And to what Rick had pointed out that, in our codes, it said here 3 feet, our ordinances. So I think we need to.
Catch up to changes,
Yeah.
so
This
that
is
it,
the time.
Yeah, it ought to be cool.
Absolutely.
Kids grow.
Rick, I would ask that as we're making changes like this, that you keep track of those changes. So that when we present this,
Yeah.
we can present a list of,
Revision.
Well, you're going to see all of it before
yeah,
we go beyond this committee anyway. So that's, I want someone to check the work.
okay,
And we decided last time to take out the cluster residential development. It says subdivided because there's not any record of anyone taking advantage of it.
There is
We
not.
could determine.
and if I'm not mistaken, it really doesn't apply in the county because you don't have access to sewer. You'd really have to have a really good first property to even be able to do that.
You could do some experimental or different kinds of systems, but
Yeah,
what it allows you to do is put small lots on a property to take advantage of the density for that property, where the topography or, you know, body of water or any number of things wouldn't allow you to take advantage of. That's what it's in here for. But if nobody has done it.
Of course, I know I grew up, old timey outhouse. Dug a hole, you know, hole, go put the building on top of it. That still could be done.
Okay.
That's one.
Have two on my property.
Yeah, it is.
Cold in the winter. You have
We
to
don't
watch out.
actually
You have
use
to- you have
them.
to watch out. You have to watch out for the wasps in the summertime.
I've been there a lot longer.
Walls and the snakes.
Yeah.
Which they get sued.
Good chicken snake will be in there. The wasp.
It was those color pages that were rough, you know. Drifting off here.
I'm actually still old enough to remember you.
But I will strike through the part to be deleted like cluster. And understand this is a living document. If that is taken out and someone comes in and requests it to be added back in, it can easily be put back in. I don't think it needs to be in the zoning ordinance to start with. It needs to be in the subregs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's part of the subdivision.
Yeah.
So that's where it should be.
Yeah. Group housing projects. I pulled that in from the county, from the city, and dropped it in the county. There is not a standard, there's not a corollary in the county for group housing development standards. So, again, drop that in and leave it as a general requirement countywide.
Yeah.
Okay. It stays in the urban, but it would then be added to the general. Billboards, advertising signs, there's a few differences in there. I can point those out, and I'll get you all a copy of what I'm doing as a marked up copy.
And if I remember correctly, we're pretty limited on billboards in the county.
You don't say other than distance from residential and agriculture. There's not a restriction on where they're located that I know of. Some jurisdictions will say put them only in commercial or residential, commercial or industrial, but we don't say that. It's just up to, I guess, whoever wants to pay for a billboard.
Yeah.
But they're in here, and the city has a few differences, and I'll leave those highlighted. And you know, if you want to leave all that language blended with the county, then all you got to do is take out the highlight.
And I think there should still be a difference there from the original intent between once you, because now you're dealing with density of the urban area, of kind of limiting some of that. Because if you look at where we've got billboards now, it's kind of where they've always been. We really haven't. I can't remember the last time a new billboard was put up.
I remember when I did that one just this side of the hospital. That didn't always, wasn't there always.
I'm like you, I can't remember one.
That was,
Across the street from everybody's Sloan's
yeah,
storage somewhere in that
I
area.
think that is the last one.
That's a new one. And then I remember when that one out there where the Dr. Running's office is.
Yeah.
At the time,
That
that one,
triangle one.
that's not, I'm older than it too.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, those are the last.
yeah.
It's been a while.
There's a plain story I can think of.
I'm getting calls about people wanting to do billboards. You know, like the ones that change and they have the pictures and things like that.
You know, there's nothing in here to reflect, to deal with that. It's just illumination so designed that it does not shine or reflect light onto such property. There's not a limit on the light intensity or anything like that.
Yeah.
And that's something we'll have to take up individually with the full commission on that.
Okay.
I know at one point the planning commission was trying to work on a limited lighting, and so that all the lighting in town would be 90 degrees towards the ground.
Oh, like earth sky, dark sky there.
Yeah.
Do you want me to put in here some language to highlight to suggest a limit? Like I'm familiar with having it drop off to no more than half foot candle at the property line. And that can apply to billboards as well as lighting on properties. Doesn't have to be a part of it, but it can be in here as a suggestion if you want
I'm hesitant to alter it that way.
Okay.
Because like I said, the planning commission is already working on an ordinance for that.
Oh, okay.
And
Would that
so
include billboards?
it would be all lighting for commercial and industrial.
Okay.
And so whether it passes or not, that's for the full commission. And I don't want the commission to feel we're trying to sneak something in this process. Like I said, I want to keep it all above board.
No, not at all.
So that this can get done and not be hindered by anything else.
Sure. I would just pay attention and be sure that it has language for billboards as they're going through, but other than that, yeah. All right, very good. What else? Zipping right along. Development standards for mobile home parks.
Okay.
Always a fun topic.
Yeah.
There's special exceptions in R3 in town and R2 in the county.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even have them, I don't even have the city standards incorporated in this document because they're pretty much different.
Mm-hmm.
How do we want to go about that? If you had, I know you've had mobile home parks in the county.
Yeah.
I don't know how many you've had in town.
I guess technically we have one out on East Main.
No, that's been developed under zoning.
Oh,
In
it's
the
under-
ordinance.
I don't know.
Because a lot of those are old.
There's one out, up there by the Wagner property going that way. Yeah. No, you won't.
Rolling Acres,
Yeah.
that's
Where-
Dalton Hall,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, Dalton, yeah. Old
that's been there
Lady Bird.
forever,
Yeah, Dalton Hall predates the zoning.
yeah.
Yeah.
The rolling acres.
They're still back
pretty
there,
much doing away with it.
but other than that, I don't know.
So they're hauling the trailers off one by one and building houses in its place.
So how would you like me to do that? Leave the county in here as it is? And drop in the city and just identify that these shall apply to general services? These shall apply to urban services?
And see, that's one of the when I was looking at this, finding those differences
Where?
in the like in any of the zonings where you've got it's allowed here and only in this way, but then in the county,
Right.
in the same residential,
I'm
it's
not there with you.
different.
I understand. Well, there's 4.090 in the county. It could be 4.091 as an urban services requirement as a separate section if you want to do it that way.
Now. They fixing to build probably a pipeline through here and probably a road. A bridge and all that. There'll be a lot of people. That you could get a trailer farm.
Yeah.
They would quickly spring up.
But it disappeared as fast as it could.
And I think, what's the damn things of that is like. Like a dollar sign, a bag, you leave it laying on the ground, it'll store pop up.
And for this particular purpose, we're not looking at changing any existing ordinances. We're merely looking to clean up and
Well,
and rectify any.
you don't want to leave it out. You don't want to leave it behind.
No,
So if we don't blend it with the county, we could add it in, like I
I think
said.
your idea of doing
Okay,
like a sub off the counties.
because I would think the city would have less need for it.
Yeah.
Moving forward than the county and leave the county as it is. I mean, if there are things in there that need to be cleaned up, I'm happy to help or happy to try, but there's a lot of language in there dealing with mobile home park, and you all are familiar with them. The only thing I would do is take out the definition of mobile home park that's already in the ordinance further back.
Yeah,
And
because now you're just duplicating what's already.
it's tough. You have it in two different places and one gets left out when you make a change.
Yeah.
And that's just human nature. But yeah, I would drop that definition, and my suggestion would be just put it in
Yeah.
a whole cloth.
Because I like the suggestion you had made before about cleaning everything, kind of having a definition section. And all the definitions live in that section.
Yeah.
So as we do make changes, you have one section to change your definition.
Absolutely.
So as you're going through the zoning ordinance, you can refer back to your glossary of terms there.
My one exception to that is many years ago, we got a brand spanking new flood ordinance that had its own set of definitions. So Rick thought it would be nice to jam all those definitions together and have them in one place in the zoning ordinance. It wasn't 6 months till they came back with another ordinance and the definitions had changed. And I said, well, I'm gonna be guilty of that again.
Well, that's your suggestion of an appendix, kind of works perfectly for
Yeah, it does.
That way you just
drop it in
just
there.
drop one off the other.
Right.
When we adopt and we go to start adopting, other, floodplain changes and whatnot, we can just drop them into the appendix and things. Yeah,
That's right.
good idea.
Wrecking yards, salvage junkyards. I don't find a lot of difference in the two in the city and the county. Again, keeping them to the higher standard because of tendency of junk salvage yards to promote breeding of vermin. No such operation shall be permitted within 500 feet in the county or 1,000 feet in town from any residential zone. So in that instance, 1,000 feet.
Well, with the two being separate though, that goes back to your density situation there, where properties aren't as close together, residential areas aren't as close together. I think that's the reason.
The more restrictive is in town.
But yeah, because it's a more dense area.
Yeah, counties get pretty dense too.
Yeah, it is.
I was gonna say, why aren't we,
Yeah, okay.
just go with them?
So go more restricted, do
Yeah.
1,000 and across the board.
That can get hairy for Rosalie if somebody has a piece of property zoned and it says no such operation shall be permitted. So if the property is zoned, it may be a fight to keep them separated by that distance, but it's already in here 500 feet. So we're not changing that. Just all right, I will make that change.
Well, and for anybody that going forward applies to have like any of this thing, permission to have that type of business, it's all gonna be going through like the BZA, it's special use and stuff like that, so it's not.
But after zoning is in place, it's tough. If they come through and get the property zoning, applying that gets to be tough. That'll be in your house.
Yeah.
Hartsville says no junk or salvage yard shall be permitted within 300 feet of any public road in Hartsville, except where a more stringent state or federal law applies. You want to also apply that to the county.
I think so. What do y'all?
Okay. Moving right along.
It was already in there, right? For
For the
city.
In the city, yes.
Yeah, I think we're just gonna.
Right on the corner.
Yeah, going up Church Street.
Yeah,
So
that's all junk cars all go.
Some of them have been moved, but not all of them.
And a lot of them still.
yeah, and that's been something of a fight that's been going on, and then the gentleman's passed away, and
But the other
So
ones
now
still got it.
yeah,
He ain't done nothing. I mean,
and it's a commercial lot.
he said he was gonna clean it all up, but he had,
Yeah.
when he dies, he'll get cleaned up.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But that's the household thing.
It is, always has been.
But he had it on the fact that, Corky's old place, right across was, he had, antiques or something, those were antiques.
Yeah.
That's how he got by with talking about there.
With what's inside that building and showing us what's on the outside of it.
That old building's falling in, all that good old furniture they had in there is burning, just like it away. He owns,
I know at one point,
building on the corner, Lipscomb's, and that's, that place was a good, solid place. He's got it full of furniture, it's just stacked.
at one point that it was brought before the commission to, there's an alleyway that runs behind that building. And letting be able to park the cars in that alleyway, because it's a non-used alleyway, it's county owns it. And it fell through and they, county commission wouldn't do it.
He wouldn't do it, one or the other.
Yeah.
I hear most complain with that right there, they need to.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
There's some more, like one out on Starlight Road. Yeah, I got 5 acres of whatever right there, they got a bought cars and trucks and wagons and stuff all over.
As long as the truck will start or is tagged, it doesn't count as a.
I doubt that's something I want you to put wrong.
Or is it tagged?
Yeah.
Or tags.
I wouldn't think it. We didn't.
Yeah, no, I don't think.
In his old barn, he filled it full of cars, so they wouldn't be going.
Well,
About to.
That's just about
About to.
We want that.
you
We're
can
gonna talk
do
about
higher
Monday.
than
We are.
I mean, the tagging,
Oh,
the state part, yeah.
Let's find out.
6, yeah,
6 o'clock. at
call
Tuesday.
meeting.
Call
Did you
meeting.
see that on, get an email on that?
Monday night, 6
Yeah.
o'clock, community center.
Yeah, 6, and then ours zoning is right after. it.
Let's get back to matters at hand here.
Development standards for cemeteries.
Okay.
In the city, not in the county. I don't remember ever having to deal with a cemetery. That usually goes to the state. And I don't remember getting my hands dirty on, pardon the pun, in cemetery developments. I don't know if you want to leave it in here as a general. It's fairly restrictive.
It's, yeah, I mean, if it's in there, we're
In the
not,
city,
yeah, we're not taking anything.
There's
out.
nothing in it for the county?
not a correlate that I see, that I found.
You be buried by your house.
Oh, there's a cemetery on the farm. It's
Yeah.
right in the middle of the farm.
Yeah.
Neither is there a corollary in the city for private campgrounds in the county,
That's.
but there will be. As this is approved, there will be.
Yeah.
Many warehouses, I don't know if you've had much dealing with them, that fairly extensive list of things to do with many warehouses that are in the county. I don't find that in the city.
And that's something because we've got more in the city now than we have in the county.
Yeah.
Or your storage building.
Yeah. We only have the one set out there at the 4-way in the county that I know of. Or no, they've got those right there off of Old Lafette Road at 10.
Yeah.
Right there at Donahoe Bridge. Those are still in the county. Those are the only 2. Everything else is in the city. We've got probably 4 or 5 units in the city now.
Yeah, this is like 3 pages of restrictions or regulations on many warehouses. Fairly extensive.
So, and that's for the county, not the.
Didn't find it in the city.
Okay, so yeah, we need to put that in both.
Okay. This one you'll really like. General requirements for individual mobile manufactured homes. All manufactured homes must be permitted before they're moved on site. A site plan must be presented to the building. This is for an individual home.
Yeah.
Site plan must be presented to the building official detailing home location, setbacks, and all other requirements deemed necessary by the building official and or the planning commission. If the manufactured home is moved on site before it's permitted, a letter will be sent notifying blah, blah, blah. Section E, if a manufactured home does not have a certification label, the interior of the home must be inspected by Trousdale County Planning and Zoning in conjunction with the exterior inspection.
I've never.
I found that to be entertaining.
Rosalie.
Yeah, no, that's on the Planning and Zoning Committee.
You guys.
It's in there.
Let's have Kurt go do some inspections.
And what would you be looking for? I mean, would you just be building code?
That's a good question. It's interior.
Yeah.
I don't know. If it passes inspection at the factory, how do you make improvements?
Well, no, that's saying if it's not
Yeah.
a certificate. with-
Does not have a certification. Well, what if it's made?
Strike that, right? I mean, I know we're not changing it, but we can put a line through that.
Yeah.
If it comes out of Franklin, Kentucky with the Amish behind it,
Yeah.
it won't have a certification label.
You see, basically, the state comes and inspects mobile homes, and they will put their own sticker on there. And then like the final electrical inspection has to be done before we would go out and do our final.
Or they have a hood sticker on it.
So I mean, it's already getting electrical inspection. I'm sure the
It's a
plumbing.
state too. They
That's
come and
good.
they look at
Yeah,
everything.
That's all it does, electric. He done, he told
Yes,
us that he done.
So you want me to make a note, consider removing this section?
Yes.
Okay.
47 mobile homes.
No, 40 some checks he done. And
I wouldn't doubt it.
he's busy
Giving a lot of
in 4 or
permits.
5 different counties.
You have to go to Jackson.
Huh?
You got Jackson.
I'll tell you about something like that.
I will highlight it and note it, and you can,
We'll do it with it.
you can,
Yeah, that's something we can take on the planning and then let planning. do it.
Okay, yeah.
They want to send it to the full commission for removal or.
and this is general requirement for individual manufactured homes.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it doesn't say, but it could be somebody that's putting one on a single lot or going into a park.
yeah,
It doesn't say. All manufactured homes. Noted. Litter, refuse, garbage, junk, and debris control regulations.
we've actually had issues in the county with that, so I don't know.
This is the county part.
Yeah,
That's, I mean, that's a,
we've actually had, there's one particular lot that we've had issues in the city.
but you don't deal with it through zoning.
I wouldn't think so.
Codes enforcement.
Yeah. So is that another one that you want to consider dropping? Because I mean, that overloads
Yeah.
Rosalie and anybody trying to enforce that as a zoning matter. I don't think you would have a lot of luck doing that. So another one, consider dropping that one.
What's the will of the body?
What's under the law?
You have in your county regulations already, vermin and trash and all that.
Garbage and
I mean, this is,
Well, we use property maintenance guidelines that we've adopted.
Right.
2018 should have all that in it.
it does.
It does have all that in it.
Mhm.
So then, yeah, we can go.
so you
I think so.
run the risk of being redundant or contrary or in conflict.
Yeah, because as that changes and that doesn't, then now we're back into conflict again.
Mhm. I will make them.
Because the commission never actually looks at those building codes and maintenances. They just, okay, they're being changed, all right, and then everyone votes on it.
Quite right.
Now, the interesting thing that it just caught my eye, it does say they put some teeth to the codes enforcement that if they don't comply and they don't take care of what they need to take care of, that a lien can be placed on the property until it's fully satisfied. Which is kind of interesting because.
Yeah, because that wouldn't be in the codes part of it, so that those teeth really need to stay there. In my opinion.
Since if the property is not transferred within 1 year, if it's not satisfied, it'll get transferred within a year. And it'll go to the register of deeds, and the property shall be sold by the county to satisfy the lien. Following the procedure set by law.
I'll defer to somebody that's had to enforce zoning regulations to weigh in on that. I don't know, that may be a Brandon question.
Yeah, I don't know, at least flag that and maybe email him directly and ask him his opinion on that.
Because I'm not sure that
Because
zoning enforcement is as strong as your
the code,
property maintenance. So
Yeah.
that's a general, and this is housed in the zoning part of the statute, state statute, and I'm not sure it's as strong as the property maintenance requirements.
because if it's not, then yeah, it needs to just go ahead and come out if we've got those teeth other, in other places.
Right. Yeah.
Then it would make sense to pull it out of here.
Development standards for outdoor firearms training facilities,
And that was put in a couple years back.
7 and 17.
We lost it. Maker.
Yeah, it got moved to Macon County.
Good deal. They making a fortune.
That's in the city and the county then. That's in both.
It's in the county. I've got a note in here about excluding skeet shooting. I think I wanted to ask about. I don't know why it would exclude skeet shooting.
That's the way it was originally done.
I know.
And I think that was. I can't remember off the top of my head why that was put in there. I know at some point there was a skeet shooting team
Okay.
that was here in Charleston County. It was a youth-
Schools
Maybe.
have them, they
Yeah.
travel all over.
I
It's
think
big,
that was talking
it's
about
big,
that
and schools
was
make
coming
it
in
county.
out on
It's got
231.
big,
Yeah.
they got a good one, I've seen them on TV.
So I think that's why that was excluded, that they wouldn't have to meet that.
Okay, I'll
Um,
leave it highlighted and you can look at it when it comes through.
and that, well, that's one of those, I don't think we can, I mean, we can send it on as to be addressed,
Right.
but I don't think we can make any changes to that.
Now, I can remember Beasley, boy, so, having one out there on his farm.
Yeah, for charity, yeah,
On charity thing on Sunday.
yeah, they used to do that. And then there's still groups that do it just for fun. You know, just a couple guys, you know, a bunch of guys get together, set up some hay bales and some throwers and.
Yeah.
The thing with skeet shooting is you're dealing with shotguns, so your load's not gonna travel more than 200 yards. Where,
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
where with rifle, you're,
Distance.
so, and. I don't know, properly done, I don't see anything wrong with nice shooting range. I'd like a nice outdoor one around here closer that I could go to myself, but. It's gonna always fall into that not my backyard scenario, so.
That's what happened 231.
And I think I just highlighted this to discuss it. There's a notice requirement in here for firearms training facilities that is probably redundant in the rest of the ordinance. It's talking about published and a sign on the property, BZA approval, that kind of stuff. I don't know if that needs to stay as a separate requirement. And there are also publication requirements for other actions. I mean,
What did it say about indoor?
it doesn't.
Indoor is not included in that.
Where most of people do it, when it's indoors.
Well, indoor can be, I mean, there's still, is there anything on indoor in Charleston County? I know
Indoor.
gun ranges.
I don't think so.
I know other counties have like no noise regulations on it. How much sound can go outside the building.
I was a firearms instructor at the airport, we were looking at doing indoor. And it required all kind of bullet traps, sound, and all that, but the bullet traps were the biggest thing, and you had to make sure that so that it go and drop down, and you collect the lead and the powder, you know, all that stuff. It had to have a heavy vacuum to suck the smoke out real quick, and it was just EPA really heavy.
And I think that's why we don't have
And
anything
we
for
didn't,
indoors.
we
because
never
it
did
is-
go that way, so.
Yeah, it's because it is so heavily regulated already that there isn't anything in the county or the city for indoor.
Now down here in Nashville, they got one in an old yeah,
It's
and it's a big one, and it's big time, 2 people go, they had it up to us.
I've actually gone to that one a couple of times. It's really nice.
Yeah,
The signage that you had for the gun range, the outdoor gun range, that was the only regulated posting of the sign in our ordinance. That's why everybody thought for rezonings, there needed to be a sign on the property. It was just on that one. So now we've corrected that, but there will always be a sign on a piece of property. So that's now.
Yeah, I think that's part of my point is it's in here and it needs to be the same or not in here.
Yeah, and I would flag that one for it to be removed.
Okay.
Just for what, because we just passed that recently this
Okay.
year.
All right.
And so,
There's some more stipulations around it as far as there has to be like a deposit.
yeah, there's a whole, there's a whole thing that goes along with it now that it isn't put in that. So we're already at a conflict now.
Okay. And this is saying the sign can't be more than 5 feet from the right of way, sort of in the center of the property, that kind of thing. To get specific about what it's trying to accomplish. Very good.
Yeah, I think we ended up doing something very similar with all our rezonings and site plans, all that. They will require the property owner to post the sign, and so yeah, that one, yeah, that's redundant and kind of outdated at this point.
Yeah. I flagged telecommunications antennas and towers. Are you okay with the process for cell towers? I don't know that it needs.
I don't think we've had AT&T come before us and Verizon both in the last couple of years, and everything. Yeah,
Fell in line.
Good.
there's not really much we can do other than what we're doing. And it's just, no one seems to want to put one in the city, but it would be the same, I would think, no matter where you put it. Fall radiuses and that sort of thing would all have to match.
Now,
Yeah, and I think most carriers now are going to small cell.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of activity for the big towers that they once did. Everything's driven by bandwidth.
last one they put up was up on Highway 10.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't fall over, it just being down.
It collapses
It
on itself.
collapses in the wind.
And if you pay attention when you're driving around, every once in a while, you'll see a utility pole that doesn't have any wires on it.
Mhm.
I've seen a few of those, and it's a cell tower.
Yeah.
It looks like a utility pole.
Just like a repeater.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, and now they're going for like 1,000-foot coverage, part of the old 300-foot towers were doing 5-mile coverage.
Yeah.
So they're trying to pack it in, and everybody's expanding bandwidth because that's what's driving it all. Probably this needs to be changed or addressed. All tower users are required to obtain a permit from the Planning and Zoning Department, 200 East Main Street, room 11. That's written in here. Is that you?
So we would,
4328 Broadway. So
Steve?
yeah,
I think
so
you just need to take the.
that just needs to
address out of the
be,
hall.
yeah, just
Okay.
take the address out.
All right.
completely.
Or just planning and zoning or
Yes.
building inspection or whatever.
Yeah, just leave it as planning and zoning, and then no reason to put an address on it, because
Right.
she might get moved to a different spot in the building, so.
I thought that was weird that it would be that specific. And that,
I bet it is. Maybe they'll do something pretty quick. Supposed to put a door right there.
That's right here.
It's right there.
Yeah.
I thought it was right there.
Yeah, that's the door that came with it. For Amy's new one.
Oh, yeah,
That's the door.
it is.
I've got a note in here. It's still talking about cell towers in zoning district other than industrial. Over 90 feet in height shall not be located within a quarter mile of any tower that is over 90 feet in height. And I've copied a section of the Tennessee code that addresses tower locations and all, so I'm gonna leave that in here.
Yeah.
I don't know how, I don't think you can do that, but I'll leave the code section in here.
We can't limit them more than what the state does.
Right, exactly, and I don't know that you can put a limit on their location like that without having a specially engineered cell tower study. Someplace like Vail, Colorado that has spent the money for engineering to show the coverage. Unless you can rely on a study like that, I don't think you can say within a certain distance, because it's them, the providers that are going to give their engineering study to the judge if it gets that far, say this is what we need. So it's slam dunk. But I'll leave it. I've just got it highlighted, and I'll stick the section of the code in there you can look at. I would take it out because I think it's dangerous. Other than that, I didn't see any problem with doing it. Getting into zoning districts, you all tell me how long you want to go tonight. I'm not on a schedule, but I don't want to hold you. Getting into zoning districts, the county just has a very rudimentary breakout of classification of districts, map, boundaries, and regulations. The city goes more in depth and breaks out residential regulations, floodplain zoning ordinance. I like to be clean, and the county reads better to me.
Okay. I have found that also, because the city gets a little muddled.
Yeah.
Because there's stuff kind of scattered. It's not, I mean, you're going down through residential, and then all of a sudden, you're having to bounce back up to this part here. I agree with you on that. I still like the idea of doing all our floodplain stuff as an appendix.
Absolutely.
And pulling that out as we're combining these two.
And
So it's not being removed, it's just being shifted.
Absolutely. And I think that one, the county or the city, or maybe both, included as a zoning district. And it doesn't need to be a zoning district, it's an overlay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I've seen it mentioned a couple of times.
yeah,
Through our ordinances, and I didn't understand the differences myself, and so I never really went there with it.
okay,
Because I know that that's more of a federal type situation there
right.
than it is.
Well, they determine the boundaries,
Yeah,
not the locals. So if it's a zoning district, the boundary moves when the map moves, and that's without your input. But
Yeah.
I would do away with it being a zoning district. Naming the different zones. I've got it as a suggestion to do HR1, HR2, HC1, HC2, and HI and HA, just to identify it as Hartsville.
Yeah.
And leave the county as it is. Yeah, if you know,
well,
it can be confusing.
just to keep it standardized though, if we're gonna go that route with it, doing HR1 as your Hartsville residential one, and then that would be a distinguishing from, say, your T or R1.
I agree.
That
Put a
way,
T in front of the
that way,
county.
that makes the distinguish between your rural and your
Okay,
urban.
well, let me ask this. I'm okay with that, but what if we put, instead of TA1, to put A1T to separate it
That's
that
fine.
way, and
However-
leave HR or whatever, so they're distinct.
Yeah, however, we're doing the urban part just the same way, but with a T instead of the HR.
But I'm
Yeah.
saying, instead of putting it in front, like I'm suggesting for the city, to put it at the end in the county, so it's distinct, so you don't accidentally confuse the two. To keep them separated that way, to make it even more distinct.
Personally, I think you need to keep it in front,
Okay.
because people are gonna be looking, okay, what's in front? Is it a nature, is it a T?
Okay.
Just not.
Any other opinions on it?
Pretty good for y'all.
Former Sheriff T.A. Jones would be happy with it. T.A. wouldn't.
Oh, Lord, you brought back a name, Sinking Sheriff. I heard you on the radio before.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Predate the.
We ran off and left you in that one, didn't we?
You had to be up.
Sorry.
Get old, dude.
Hey, I ran around the courthouse square when I was a kid. My uncle had a barber shop on the square. I was well familiar with a lot of characters in town.
He was one of them, smoothie.
He was.
And,
He was. Little Tommy.
Was that the barbershop that had the mural at the top? Wasn't that the barbershop?
So that was Charlie Puckett's.
Yes.
He had that done after.
No, he didn't do the mural was already there.
Okay.
His is on the north side of the story.
That's in the scan.
Yeah, he's scared.
He's already scared. Only you one stop.
All right, so we're all in favor of doing the urban and rural designation in front of the zoning? So that,
Already done.
all right, that's what we're gonna do then.
You know where the cat came from? His dad was Luther Cat. And his dad was Bill Cat. And at the time, there were so many Bill Gregory's that was the way to keep himself. He was Bill Cat, and everybody knew Bill Cat, and it was followed down the family line with Cat. Yeah.
So since that finally gets us into the zoning,
Yes.
I think that's a good place for us to pause for this meeting,
Okay.
on this particular subject.
Well, let me ask this.
Is there-
What I had proposed earlier, and it's a fair amount of work. I don't shy away from that, but what I would propose to you is putting the use categories in a separate place from the different zoning districts, so that you don't have to look at agricultural district to know what uses are there.
Well, we've already got the chart that was passed with
Okay.
all our uses, which
Okay.
I don't know, Rosalie should have sent you a copy
Did
of
I
that.
send you a copy of the land uses where it's now in a chart?
Not sure.
So that should be listed as like an appendix, and that would take care of what you're referring to. That's already been passed and is in law now.
Okay, and did you do the same with setbacks with the height?
No,
Both,
it was just use.
okay,
So we could do that with.
Yeah.
With that also,
that was my next point was
and that would be a separate appendix there that you.
correct. Right now,
And I don't think-
section A is district description, B is uses permitted. C is accessory uses, and D is uses special exceptions.
Mhm.
And then it breaks over into bulk requirements like setbacks and height or uses permitted. And then the bulk requirements inside. Oh, somebody help me. I've run into this before. In agricultural district,
Mhm.
with public water and fire protection, 2 acres.
Yes. Has to have a fire hydrant. That's the fire protection.
Where is that in here?
That's your fire. protection.
That's the
No, where is it in
W
here?
and SS. That's on this. It's in this.
Okay, I'll look. Same thing.
Okay.
It needs to be in here.
One moment. Now, are you talking?
When it says minimum area per dwelling. Public water, fire protection, 2 acres, public water, 3, without public water, 4. So where is fire protection?
The S.
So public water I got. And without public water I got, I can deal with that, but where do I find fire protection? How is it defined?
I had it, because I created like a little spreadsheet of thing for the SS on it.
So you're actually asking for the definition of fire protection, what that, because it's understood it's a fire hydrant.
But what distance, what is considered with fire protection?
500 foot, isn't it? And I'm doing that based off as we've done our
Well,
subdivisions.
we had to actually ask about that, not what the distance was, because when we were looking at subdivisions, some of them we had to require that they have fire hydrants, and it wasn't not like a
So is it defined in the subdivision regulations?
possible.
I didn't look for it there. If it is, then we need to drop in a reference here to that. Okay, I'm done. I'll be quiet. But I'll start working on the matrix for height, setbacks, those kinds of things as well, and put that together. That'll be a big help because it gives you one place to go, like the uses. It gives you one place to go to figure out setbacks for all the districts.
Okay.
So you're asking
Mhm.
this, like you want the definition of fire
What is
protection?
fire protection?
Ah, yeah, no, they didn't.
Okay.
We had it.
Somewhere there's got to be a scripture.
Well, you know, if GNRC knows what that says, then there needs to be something there to follow. Because that's what they would say. The fire protections.
If it's in the subregs, I'll find it, but I didn't find it in the zoning ordinance when I did my search.
All right. Well, we've covered quite a bit on that tonight. And I appreciate the progress that you're making, Rick. Now that we're in the zoning part, that should go quite a bit faster till we start getting back to the appendix and how we're gonna lay that out.
The really the only thing in the zoning is just putting the matrices together. The
Yeah.
use, it's already together. If I can get a copy of that, that would be great.
But now on the matrix that we put together, it was only for usage. So your setbacks and whatnot. That'll
No,
have
I
to
can
be
do that.
created.
Yeah,
But
that's not a
yeah,
problem.
it's labeled as exception. We've got it broken down to 3 different categories. And so it took everything out of our existing and just put it in a chart.
Not to beat a dead horse, how did you handle C1? Because where residential has all this list of uses, C1 breaks it down into individual uses 26 times.
Go back and look at the chart. GNRC put that one for us.
Okay.
So,
I'll be curious.
yeah.
Give me a copy of that. I'll put my eagle eye on that.
Yeah. All right, so our next topic, well. Wasn't that and that and that. All right, so the next one we've got is, so last meeting that we met at, we went over the adult entertainment ordinance and passed that on to planning. Planning looked at it and agreed, and we're very happy that we actually put that forward, but wanted definitions added. So what they asked me to do is to go back to Cheatham County, look at what they had as their definitions of adult entertainment uses. And so I just copied and pasted that. And I sent that both to Rick for review, and I sent it to Brandon also. And so now that's now part of that ordinance that we had. So that'll be going forward to work session. I want to go ahead and let you know if there's any changes on that. I'm sorry I did not have any printed off copies of that. I'm trying to remember if I emailed that out when I made when Amy stitched all that together for me, but I'll make sure that everyone gets a copy of that so we can look at that. If it's verbatim, and looking at it and talking with, I can't remember who our new rep, our stand-in rep is from GNRC. Yes. She was looking over, and when she looked at the ordinance that we're wanting to put forward, she's like, well, this is just the state ordinance, just put into your county language. So we're not overstepping in our regulation. We're just adopting the state that we're not part of into ours. And so we finally will have something all these years later to kind of limit it. I have gotten a little bit of pushback about us putting it in the M zoning. And I've had to do a lot of explaining. And I don't think it's quite understood by those who don't understand zoning. Because the M zoning that we have is over by the river and is looked at as, possible prime, developmental on the river. Well, that's where you're wanting to put this. And yes, it's the zoning we're wanting to put it in, but other land could be rezoned, and it could be other places.
Well, that could be rezoned.
Or that could be rezoned. Not putting it in agricultural, not putting it in, you definitely wouldn't want to put it in residential, but in regular commercial, that gives you the full span of the whole county and doesn't really give much room to regulate, the location of that.
And I think it's dangerous to create a zone for it that's not already in existence.
Yeah, because then at that point, everything you did with that would be a spot zone.
Right.
And then you're becoming more selective, and it looks like you're purposely trying to ban an entity that is constitutionally protected from coming in. So to avoid all that, I think it's still best that we just stick with what the industrial that we have. And I mean, there's a lot of things that are in the city, in the urban area, but not in the county. I don't think we run into issues with that per se.
One thing that would be a benefit is not having frontage on Main Road.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was my
attractiveness.
Yeah. You are going to have the bridge over over the river coming down through some of that property, but it'll be going over it, and you won't be able to connect that property to that road. So I guess you could if enough money was thrown into it, but that's a lot of money. So I still, through all the years of discussion about it, I still have not seen anything brought up that's any better. And even the person who was objecting to it couldn't come up with a better zoning for it, just didn't like the idea that it was there.
Yeah.
It's got to go somewhere.
Exactly.
So put one up, I wanted way out there. So away from be better, do a lot more. You get by a lot more out in the country, away from the law. Yeah, I got a spot up there. Back in the woods, that hard rock.
So that's the update on that. I just wanted to share the progress of that since it did originate from this committee. Is there anything else anyone would like to discuss? Any other topics that we might need to start looking at once this kind of gets pushed through? I haven't heard of anything else that I'm completely aware of that, just has no zoning areas for it. I'm sure there are others, and in part of that matrix, which when you get a copy of that, Rick, make sure you look into, there was a process put in place that if what you're wanting to do doesn't fit this matrix, here's the process of going through the BZA and what the BZA uses to evaluate where that entity should go.
Right.
And so that was part of GMRC's input on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the intent, and I appreciated that, because it then gives a process without having to, well, then we can just go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little concerned in the documentation that they're using for reference, using national standards for local. I mean, that kind of kept us safe out of the whole quarry thing, because we weren't using the national definition of sparse. We were, you could actually say, no, this was done in Trousdale County. Mm-hmm. In Trousdale County, sparse is relative to our areas. Mm-hmm. I think if we're going to start using national standards, I don't know if it really is going to be a positive thing for Trousdale County. So if you could look at that, if that's something that we could amend or we can address, in the near future. But that's the only thing that I'm aware of.
Didn't like heard anything about the quarry.
I haven't heard anything further.
They come up trial.
Appeal or anything.
Appeal. I know they appealed. They just said come. I guess court dates been put to it.
I haven't actually heard that they've appealed it.
I haven't heard for sure about that either. I think they said.
Oh, with it, they appealed.
Okay. Well then, yeah, but that's.
Yeah, they appealed it pretty quick.
Where was it going to be located?
Down 231.
Arthurian down
Over towards the bridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Going toward 11.
Okay.
Between 231 and the river on the
I saw the sign the other day, and I wondered if it was still active.
So far, it's not. They're supposed to have halted all construction or any.
But I mean, the process.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still in the court system. So, our county attorney thinks we have a really good leg to stand on with the way planning handled it. And the way the processes we referenced and how we handled the whole ordeal. So glad I wasn't chairman during all that. Mr. Kerr did a fine job of letting everyone speak and keeping it orderly, that all the information be laid out, and then an honest decision being made, and it's held in court. And that's what any chairman can do in that situation. I'm not looking forward to next month's meeting. If there's nothing else for discussion, motion to adjourn. Second. All right. All in favor? Aye.
It was not debatable.
It is not.